You're listening to the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
The Southern gentleman himself, Will Huckaby. And as usual, I'm on the line hanging out with the greatest producer in wrestling podcast history. I don't care what anybody else says. My producer is way better than your producer. He's smarter, and he probably kick your producer's ass. The great Killer Kev. What's going on, Kev?
What the hell? Are you trying to get me into a fight? I mean, granted, yeah, you try to throw down on me, I'm just going to kick your ass, but come on, man. I am not looking for trouble here.
I think you'll get, come on, man. Kev, Jesus Christ, man, you have your shoot job, or what I like to call the Clark Kent job, and, then you do this podcast, and you help out with other podcasts on the Angry Marks Network and stuff, man. You're always busy, bro. You're like the hardest producer in wrestling podcasts, period. You know what I'm saying? Like, and plus, you're a tough guy. You're from Kentucky, or Indiana, but you live in Kentucky, so you gotta be tough to live in Kentucky. No? Yes? Anyway. As usual, what I'm saying? Unfortunately, my co-host, my homie, my friend, the bearded wonder, Das Wonderbeard, Zane Paisley, had to take a brief hiatus from the show, but don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, he'll be back on hopefully in a couple of weeks and stuff once, everything settles out and everything. But, for the time being, for the foreseeable future, you're stuck here with me and Killer Kev. So, we're going to talk about everything, wrestling, current events, what I got going on. And, of course, as usual, something that you have come to respect and love about this podcast is that we're going to have some amazing guests, not only wrestling legends, not only what you would call indie darlings, but some really good up-and-coming wrestlers and stuff, males and females, that's coming up and stuff from the indies and stuff all over the country. As usual, this podcast is brought to you by the Angry Marks Podcast. Whether you have an iPod, whether you have an iPhone, whether you have, an Android or whatever the case may be, or even on your computer, your laptop at home, go to the Google Play Store, go to the Apple Store, whatever you want to call it. Look up Angry Marks Podcast. You can see all the podcasts for the entire network. Not only the Wrestling Nerds, but Glove Up or Shut Up, the Angry Marks Podcast. I mean, Jesus Christ, we have like 7 or 8 different podcasts on this network, and all of them are great. But check them out, especially, check out this podcast. You can go ahead and get it downloaded every week straight to, what your favorite listening device. Me, myself, I like to download it on my Kindle and stuff, or I like to download it on my little tablet, have Bluetooth compatible. That way I can listen to not only this show, but all my favorite wrestling shows and stuff, or my favorite wrestling podcasts and the Angry Marks podcast. I just listen to it when I'm traveling the highways and byways in this crazy world that we call professional wrestling, going from state to state every weekend. So, speaking of state to state, this past weekend, I was in Lyons, Georgia for NWA Georgia. Let me make sure that I say that correctly, because I made a mistake on my social media and called it Georgia Extreme, and the promoter kind of dug into my ass a little bit. But NWA Georgia, Lyons, Georgia, had a pretty fantastic match. I had a triple. Well, it was a singles match with me and Anthony Anderson, who used to be, a longtime indie wrestler in Georgia. Now he lives in Texas. You might see him on Booker T's Reality of Wrestling. Catch him on that on Booker T's show and stuff. But start off with me and Anthony Anderson, and then halfway through the match, somebody who's seriously known in the Southern Georgia wrestling scene, Payne, interfered and stuff, and they turned into a triple threat elimination. Me and Payne, being the good guys that we are, we used our 1-2 combo punches and stuff. We got Anthony Anderson out of the match, and then it was me and the big man and stuff, and I hit him with a power slam, and this dude's he's on the far side of 300 pounds. He's a good 340, 350. I hit him with the old school Lex Luger power slam. I thought I had him. Went to pick him up and stuff to shoot him off with a spine buster. He reversed it, got me with his Baldo bomb. For all of you, or I guess for people my age or whatever, it's the Tenzai, Lord Tenzai, Albert, his Baldo bomb, his power bomb and stuff. which is basically just a sit-down powerbomb. Hit me with that, got the 1, 2, 3. But the show was really good, man. It was not only, myself, but unfortunately the NWA Continental Champion, Bad Blood from Portland, Oregon was there. The NWA National Champion, Cahagas, him and Damian Wayne had another epic knockout, drag-out, beat the piss out of each other's fight. And I'm gonna tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never seen Cahagas versus Damian Wayne, put that on your to-do list, man. Like, a lot of people, of course you hear people from other podcasts, specifically Jim Cornette, always arguing about guys, these flippity dude wrestlers and stuff. That's not the case. You get these two guys in the ring. They have so much history between the two of them, going all the way back a couple of years ago when Adam Pearce vacated the NWA heavyweight title and they had this huge tournament, and everybody thought Damian Wayne was about to win, and then Cahagas came out at the last minute. It ended up, beating Damian Wayne for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. But these two guys just beat the piss out of each other, man. Some of the stiffest, hardest, loudest chops, this side of the Mississippi, period. When you talk about tough guys in wrestling, those two guys should definitely be on the list and everything. Another guy that was there, somebody that I think that, a lot of people should check out. And if you watch Booker T's Rally of Wrestling, his Texas champion, Rex Anderson was there. Rex Andrews was there. Had a phenomenal match with a buddy of mine and stuff, man. The luscious one who works with me and stuff, wrestles for AWE down there in Atlanta and stuff. Took the NWA Georgia Championship and stuff. Took that, and he's taking that back to Texas and stuff. A really good match. Who else is there? The NWA World's Junior Heavyweight Champion, Eric Andrews, based out of Tennessee or Kentucky, whatever you want to say. He's based out of the Tennessee, Kentucky area. Him and Matt Gilbert, who's somebody that I'm really, really starting to like, and I'm really loving his matches and stuff. He's coming so far from when I first saw him. Him and Matt Gilbert had a really amazing match. They probably could have main evented anywhere in the country, man. That's about how good that match was. But anyway, that was in NWA Georgia. I had a great time. Can't wait to come back. They're only running like 3-4 times a year. The next show is in July, I do believe. But I will be on that show, thank goodness and stuff. So had a great time there. Sunday, I was in Greensboro, North Carolina, for Firestar Pro Wrestling presents Zone 1. I guess Zone 1 is kind of like their student show. It's like, Firestar is a big, huge company, and Zone 1 is their student shows. They have those like every other week or whatever. I don't really want to call them student shows, but, they're just smaller developmental shows. It's like the Nitro to their, or the Thunder to their WCW Nitro, I guess you call it. It's the B show. Up until, Sunday, I was 3-0 at Zone 1 Championship Wrestling. I, beat up on a guy named Buns, my homeboy Buns. Beat up on Bryce, this kid named Mickey Bryce. Beat up on James Ryan. I was undefeated and stuff. And so I got a title shot against their champion Griff, and I lost due to outside interference. I'll put it like that, man. It was a really good match. Not gonna give out all the details and stuff. Luckily, they have a YouTube show. If you follow me on social media, when that episode of Zone 1 Championship Wrestling comes out on YouTube and their social media, I'll go ahead and post it to my Twitter and my Facebook and stuff. Try to get back into the Instagram thing. Kind of fell off. I hadn't been on Instagram, I think, in almost over a year, probably. So I'm really going to start, uploading stuff and pictures and everything to Instagram, and also my YouTube. I finally, realized how to edit videos and stuff. So you'll see a lot more video content on my YouTube page, and you follow that. It's same as everything else, Will Huckaby. So, Kev, did you have anything special this weekend?
Well, this weekend I was down in Pikeville, Kentucky for Hillbilly Days.
Oh, I remember you were telling us about that. Oh, Jesus, how was that?
That was actually pretty awesome. It's basically just a street festival, outdoor concerts. They usually book a concert at the Expo Center as well. This year's concert was country music star Chris Stapleton, who's from the Pikeville area. He's not performed there in several years since before he became a big star, so this was kind of like a big thing. hotels like in a 50-mile radius were sold out since December for this. So it was a pretty cool event, though. And let me just say, for it having the name of Hillbilly Days, it's not anywhere like what you would think. For one thing, not a single Confederate flag found anywhere.
What?
And for a second thing, no tobacco spit anywhere on any sidewalk or street.
Okay, but there was at least like long mountain man beards and overalls and stuff, right? Work boots.
No, not really. Most of the hillbillies, if you could call them that, were out there wearing flip flops and shorts and and the big seller there this year was Hillbillies Lives Matters T-shirts.
Can you really call them hillbillies though? If there's no like long mountain beards and overalls and tobacco spitting and Confederate flags, is that really? Because when I think of hillbillies, maybe not the Confederate flags, but I think of like Jed Clampett and stuff. And you said there's none of that. There was really none of that whatsoever.
Yeah, I think the hillbillies have kind of updated their style a little bit.
Well, that's no fun.
And I just got to say, the lack of Confederate flags and the lack of tobacco spit, that's 2 points better than any festival I've gone to in Louisville in the last year, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, like I live here in Carolina, on the coast in Carolina, and believe you me, there's tobacco spitting and Confederate flags everywhere here at the beach. You wouldn't think so, like being at the beach or whatever, but there's Confederate flags everywhere. Hats, T-shirts, handkerchiefs, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you're going to see at least, a couple of hundred at the festival. Easy.
But it was pretty good. Lots of street food. A lot of it the same. I mean, you go about every 20 or 30 feet and you start repeating the same ones over and over. But I think one of the best places I went was a little restaurant, down in the middle of town called Bob's Smokehouse. And surprisingly, there's not a lot of people there, but probably the best rack of ribs I have ever eaten.
Really?
I mean, so good, so perfectly cooked, so perfectly seasoned and rubbed. I didn't even need any barbecue sauce.
No, that's all I want to ask you. While we're on the topic of barbecue and ribs and stuff, like here in Carolina, we call barbecue, I guess what we call barbecue, everywhere else in the country, they call it pulled pork.
Uh-huh.
And then we call, a rack of ribs, hey, we got some ribs. That's about it. Do you like your ribs and stuff, or like a dry rub, or do you prefer to have it like already slathered in barbecue sauce or whatever?
I actually kind of prefer it dry. I think sauce kind of masks a lot of the flavor, and sometimes you do need sauce. But I think if you cook it right, you season it right, and you rub it down right and prepare it right, I don't think you need the sauce. For people who like the sauce, that's great, but I'm kind of over the years, I'm like less sauce.
See, because I was growing up and stuff, it was always you gotta have sauce on it, got to. And I really didn't start really getting into like dry rubs until I started wrestling in Memphis. Like my first and second time in Memphis, somebody was like, "Hey, you gotta get the ribs. You gotta get barbecue here in Memphis." And I was like, I'm from Carolina. Like, man, like nothing's better than what the fuck we make. Like, nobody can make barbecue better than somebody in North Carolina. But the best ribs I've ever had in my life definitely was in Memphis. This little small, like you said, little small hole-in-the-wall place, not a lot of people. It was like maybe 2 or 3 people in there. And the best ribs I'd ever had. It was so good that I ordered another rack of ribs to go so I could eat that later on that night.
I tell you what, if I had the money available, I probably should have got another rack of ribs. This dinner cost me about $30, but my employer got to pay for it, so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, like I was telling everybody for the show, at the beginning of the show, we have a great guest for you tonight. Killer Kev, do you want to go ahead and see if we can get our guest on the line?
Yes, sir. We will ring-a-dinger him right up.
Hello. Hey, yes, hello. May I please speak to Nemesis? All right, let me go ahead and give you a good introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're blessed. We have the opportunity and the good fortune and the good luck, whatever you want to call it, to have as a guest tonight the current reigning and defending NWA Mid-Atlantic Junior Heavyweight Champion. Not only is he the Junior Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, he's held numerous titles, throughout his almost 20-year career in professional wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Nemesis. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I like that intro.
Thank you, man. You know what I'm saying? Has it been 20 years yet?
This year makes my 20th year.
Oh man, so, geez, you've seen it all, man. Obviously you've been around the block a lot.
Yeah, I've seen some things.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say, man, we worked together at NWA Mid-Atlantic and stuff, man, and I had the opportunity to be present, when you basically had an interview after your last match and stuff. You, was wrestling a really good friend of mine, Chris Crunk out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and you cut this amazing promo right after the show, basically talking about how everybody's talking about their strong style now, and back, 20 years ago when you first started, that was basically just called being a man. How has wrestling changed in the last 20 years since when you started to where it's at now?
Oh man, I would say it's more about, I hate to say it, it's just more about how many flips you can do in a match. Sometimes it just seems like it's all about getting your move off or whatever, and it's less and less about telling a story. So, I don't know. It was always about proving yourself. It was always about showing your athleticism in the ring, But I think the focus has gone away from actual wrestling, and that's kind of a shame.
Now I'll tell you, man. 20 years in, bro, you still got it. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not even gonna lie, man. You've been wrestling almost as long as a lot of. Matter of fact, you've been wrestling almost as long as Impact star Trevor Lee has been alive. I think Trevor Lee might be 20 years old, and you've been wrestling longer than he's been alive, and you can still keep up with these guys. What do you attest, your work rate to? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you stay in shape?
Well, the craziest thing is, it's just about being smart in the ring, I think. As far as keeping up with these guys, it's really just trying to stay one move ahead of them, and then finding that weakness that, they eventually show like they always do, and then capitalizing off of it. As far as staying in shape, I'm constantly moving. I'm constantly, man, I don't get in the gym, and I'm not one of these ring, one of these, gym rats or whatever. But I have my own little regimen as far as staying, in shape.
Yeah,
it could be better.
I was gonna say, so 20 years or whatever. I know you've seen some amazing stuff and everything. Who was really around this stuff, and who did you really look up to, and who mentored you when you first broke into the business and stuff?
Oh man, like when I first came into the business, and the craziest thing is, like, in the class that I came in with, I'm the only guy that's still performing. So out of a class of about 20 guys in that one class, like, I'm the only one that's still doing this. My biggest influence was always Ric Flair, as far as like, some of the names or whatever, Ricky Steamboat, the Road Warriors or whatever. But as far as here independently, I learned a lot from C.W. Anderson as far as psychology. I've had the pleasure of being in the ring with a lot of guys, Shane Helms, not trying to drop names, but, It's just that back then.
Feel free to drop names, man. Like, yo, put yourself over. I don't care.
I understand. Like, it's just amazing of the guys that were around when I first came in. You know, I had the pleasure of actually working Shane, one of his last indie matches before being signed to WCW. Oh man, like it's crazy. Caprice Coleman is an amazing talent. I always, you know, he's a name that's been, you know, kind of like, man, you're not supposed to say his name, I guess, but to me, he'll always be one of the greatest, and that's Chris Benoit, you know. So I don't know, I had a lot of influences. It always came back to wrestling. It always came back to the entertainment aspect, you know. You know, back then we actually had gimmicks. So,
yeah, nowadays, everybody's a tough guy. You know what I'm saying? There's no Doink the Clowns and stuff. I mean, they're out there and stuff. You see guys who still have gimmicks and stuff, whether they're funny or they're supposed to be, you know, dead people or monsters or whatever the case may be. But it just seems like now, in what I call the UFC era, like everybody thinks that they're fucking Rampage Jackson or, you know, Chuck Liddell or whatever.
You can go to any show, man, and I guarantee you the funniest thing is, like, every dude that comes to the curtain is usually trying to be a badass. You know, I'm 5'4.5". You know what I'm saying? I can't be Goldberg, you know? So there was other ways of getting over, you know, whether it was comedy, whether it was just giving them something they had never seen with, like, the stripper gimmick, you know? So I'm probably one of the only guys that have done the little striptease as far as bringing somebody into the ring with it. You know, there's always been like the Rick Rudes of whatever, but I think I took something like that and just gave them something they hadn't seen before.
Oh, definitely. I remember the first time I seen you still doing the striptease gimmick, and I was like, man, it'd be so awesome if he just kicked her in the face right now. Like, that'd be like the greatest heel move ever.
You just don't realize how many times I've actually wanted to do that. But, like, I've always been, like, the craziest thing, I've been booked as a baby way more than a heel, you know. Mm-hmm. And even at my size, I rarely work cruiserweights. So I've always been thrown in there with heavyweights, which is crazy. So,
well, I think you can attest that to the fact that, you know, nowadays guys who they call cruiserweights and stuff are 170, 180 pounds. You know, they don't really. And I'm gonna go ahead and say they don't really work out. You can tell they don't work out. They're very skinny. Like I heard Tommy Dreamer tell somebody, I'm not going to say their name on the podcast, but like, you know, they think that they're ripped and they think that they're ripped or whatever, but they're not ripped. They're just skinny. Like, that's it. Like, yo, you're just bony. You're not ripped. You're just bony. But you know, you got guys like you. But you know, you got guys like you, Joe Black, JT Smooth, who are still considered cruiserweights, but you were on the larger side of cruiserweights, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, I've seen a lot of guys, you know, and not to down these guys or whatever, because, you know, you do what you got to do. But if you were just born skinny, you know, don't act like you're just the crap when it comes to your body as far as thinking you're, you know, the issue or whatever. You know, you were just born skinny. You know, a lot of us had to work, you know, to get bigger or whatever. So, and it's crazy because when I first came in, I was such an underdog as far as my size. Like, I think that one of the only other comparisons was like a Rey Mysterio, you know, as far as my size goes. And one of the craziest things ever was, working a show with Greg the Hammer Valentine. And this dude gave me one of the biggest compliments I had ever had. And he was like, man, you remind me of a young Eddie Guerrero. And like, I was like, yo, don't say that. I was like, bro, please don't say that.
That's a huge compliment. Who was, you know, we're talking about smaller guys or whatever. And of course, when you first broke, what year did you actually break into the business?
What was that?
I said, so I'm taking you broke into business about 97, 98?
Yeah, 97.
So, yeah, so that was like right there in the middle of the Attitude Era and stuff. Let me ask you, like, who were some of the tough guys, like legitimate tough guys that were on the indies and stuff, that you just saw, and people just knew not to mess with them? Of course, you know, we know about the legendary Ming and Scott Norton and the Steiners and stuff. And nowadays, you know, we got like, you know, Tahagas and Bruce Santee and Vordell Walker and guys like that. But who are some of the legitimate tough guys that were in the business and stuff when you first broke in?
Man, like, I heard stories of Barbarian. You know, you just didn't want to cross any of those Samoan guys, you know, at all. You know what I'm saying? They was just like, there was just rules. You just did not cross any Samoan whatsoever. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, Barbarian. As far as indie guys, let me see. Oh, man. Like, that's kind of a hard one. You had Rick Link, you know. I think he's still going. And he was a legit dude that would rip a new ass out of you. Chief, you know, like, you never wanted to get Chief mad, you know. Oh, man, I stayed on, like, the good side of all these guys. So, I never, one of the hotheads coming up was Mike Youngblood. You know, I actually seen this dude put like 8 staples in one of my homeboys' head, you know, with a steel chair, you know, for one of the dumbest reasons. But, you know, he was a legit badass. But yeah, man, it wasn't so much as far as like guys with names or whatever on the indies for that reason. It was just maybe the wrong night. You know, you got on the bad side of somebody the wrong night. You know, and that was the difference now. You know, then than now. I think there was a bigger respect for the business then than you have now, which is you know, something a lot of us talk about now. I don't think you have that respect for the business and these guys that, you know, we had then. You know, everybody said you should change this and you should change that and you should, you know, evolve with the times and all that. But there's a reason this business and this has lasted for so long, you know.
Now, I mean, I understand what you're saying because I like to think that I was one of the last guys, the last time period of guys who definitely got trained in a very old school way where if you were green, you didn't really come into a locker room. You were seen but never heard from. You did what you told and you took an ass whooping. And, you know, it wasn't like, you know, nowadays where guys working a year or two and all of a sudden they're winning titles. It took a year or two before you actually won your first match.
Yeah. Like, I legit went a whole year just on my back. On my back night after night. So, and back then you were taught that, you know, it wasn't about winning. It wasn't about belts. You know, everything, you know, the average fan thinks it is about, you know. So, yeah, we were brought up a different way. You know, you got guys that's probably only been in the business a handful of years and call themselves training people. You know, that's crazy to me. You know?
Yeah, now I want to ask you about that. In your opinion, is it, you know, the number of matches? Because of course you've heard different. I hear different things. I've heard, you know, you need to have so many years in the business. Then I've heard it doesn't matter about how many years you had; it's the number of matches you've had. And then, of course, some people says, well, you know, if you've been working on the indies for 15, 20 years, how are you going to teach somebody to go to, you know, WWE or TNA if you've never been there? In your opinion, what's the qualifications to be a trainer? What are the minimum basic qualifications if somebody wanted to be a trainer?
I think it's basically the time you put in the ring, you know, and only like for real, like some guys can actually probably tell you how many matches they've been in since they've been in the business, but I cannot remember how many matches I've been in, you know, which to me means, you know, I've done more than a guy who can tell you, you know, I've been in X amount of matches, I've won this amount, I've lost this, like, who freaking remembers all that, you know? So, like, what are you really doing if you can keep count, to me, you know? But as far as, like, what qualifies, I think you got to just put in your time in the business, period. You know, you have to have learned from, like you said, guys that have been there, you know. But when you look at the amount of guys that have been there, like, that's really not a big number, you know. Like, and all of the best ones have come from the indies, you know. They're trying to do the little cookie cutter thing now where, you know, they're growing talent, you know, in-house. But for me, as long as you're up and down the roads, you know, putting in your time in the business, I think it is about how long you've been in the ring, not necessarily about who you've worked or whatever. I think it's just you can't say a guy that's, say, started, you know, in the WWE or whatever at their, you know, at their little school, and for a couple of years would have more knowledge than, say, you who've been in the business, you know, X amount of years, you know, on the indies. You know, how would, you know, A, know more or be more out to train somebody than you know, just because they're there, you know, would be ridiculous. You know, if you put in that time, you've made those towns, you know, and you've been in ring after ring after ring. So I think it's more of how much time you've actually put in the ring doing quality matches, not you know, working some green dude night after night or whatever, but getting in the ring with different people, learning things from guys that's been there, and just putting that time in.
Now, you talk about, let's go ahead and, since you brought it up and stuff, and this is something I definitely wanted to talk to you about, was putting in the windshield time and getting the car and going from town to town and stuff. You know, when you was really active and going wrestling, you know, 150, 200 shows a year, whatever, what did an average weekend look like for you? An average road trip, whatever. What did it look like for you?
Oh, man. Back then, like, and I'm pretty sure it still goes on now, you tried to get on as many shows that weekend as you could. You know, you would leave one and hopefully be trying to get to the next one. Even if you wasn't working on that show, you would at least try to make a showing, get your face seen, talk to the promoter or whatever, and try to make at least 2 shows a day, you know. At least.
Hold on. Did you say 2 shows? Did you just say 2 shows a day?
Yeah. Back then, like, it was something as far as having like shows during the week. You had to be on the road for that. Like, the promotions around here locally usually only ran on the weekend. So, yeah, you had to get out there on the road, like from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you could shoot and do 2 or 3 shows like a day, you were really doing something.
So give me an example of you know, a weekend of traveling with Nemesis and stuff. What cities?
You may get a
shot
in. You may get a shot in Ohio. Work a show in Ohio. Finish your show, your match. Try to, you know, get put on early. And this is coming from North Carolina, so you shoot to Ohio, do your match, and be on your way back. You know, and that'd be 1 show, but that would be a road show. But if you could do that Friday show and be back by like a Saturday morning show, which, you know, they did a whole lot more midday shows back then. You could do that show Saturday and then shoot to another show, hopefully by the 7 o'clock bell time, on Saturday. And if you were lucky to have a show on Sunday, you try to hit that show too. So it was nothing to go out of state, come back in state, and then hit a couple spots in state. Back then we had tours, so it was nothing to be on an Easy Rider tour and be in New York State, or Wisconsin, New Hampshire, which in New Hampshire I got on the front page of the paper that night.
So hold on. So go ahead and explain to me what's the Easy Rider tour? Who put that together?
Easy Rider, for anybody that knows anything about motorcycles, is a national publication for like Harley Davidson and that type of crowd. And they have their own magazine. And what they do is go around and fairgrounds. They be at the fairgrounds, and that's where all your bike rallies were. And these weren't guys to play with. These were like your hardcore bikers. These were like your Hells Angels and Pagans and all that. And it was nothing to do one of these shows in front of, some of the baddest dudes ever. And you're sitting there with just the, 8 guys you're riding with. So, it was pretty weird. It was pretty weird.
I can imagine, you at the fairgrounds, there's a couple of thousand or a couple of hundred, I guess you want to call them, outlaw bikers, outlaw motorcyclists or whatever. I guess at that point, you definitely didn't want to be a heel at one of those shows. Am I correct?
We had certain, orders on a couple of them. And when we had like some of the roughest, clubs there, like there was specific orders for all the black guys not to be, like basically we were told to wear masks at these shows. They didn't want to see any black guys, without masks or whatever. And I can specifically recall being in, we were in Connecticut, and I flat out told them I was not going to come out if I had to wear a mask, and in front of these crowds, it was always 2,000 to 3,000 people, always, every single crowd.
What was this, 1974? I mean, what are you talking about? Like, they didn't want to see any black people without masks on. I mean, even in the 70s, you know what I'm saying?
Bro, we pulled up on this show, and we were specifically told not to come out without a hood on, mask, whatever you want to call it. So, I can remember being actually, it was only on that night, it was only 2 of us. And the craziest thing is like, both of us was working guys that had biker gimmicks.
Oh, man.
Which was crazy. Which helped me out because the guy I worked was Michael Yamaha. So that he really didn't get over at all at this spot. So, and then there was Viper, who had to wrestle Dave Renegade, who had a Harley gimmick, and almost like the funniest thing from that night, dude, we was up against a fence, and this guy was actually about to urinate on Viper.
Wow.
I'm telling you, like, the things you see in this business is ridiculous.
So, I mean, all right, so I like to ask guys and stuff who's been in the business as long as you have and stuff about ribs. Of course, guys, when you're on the road, like you just said, you're on that Easy Rider tour, and you're in Wisconsin or Connecticut or New York, and you don't really know the area, so it's not like, besides going out to the local bar and stuff or the hotel bar or something, you got to find ways to amuse yourself. So do you have any really good, on the road rib stories and stuff for us?
Oh my God. I'm a quiet dude, so like I've always just stayed away from, depends on who I was hanging out with, But like we've put condoms on guys' face, like put lotion in condoms, and when they go to sleep, you know what I'm saying, they wake up with a damn a condom with lotion all in it, on the face. We've some of the workers from out of town, like if we happen to be in the same hotel, we do things to their rooms while we're in the hotel. Oh man, I've seen guys whole bags get thrown in the shower. Oh man.
Who did you know personally that was probably one of the best rivers and stuff? Or you know what I'm saying, pulled probably one of the greatest ribs on somebody?
That I knew personally, or that I heard about?
Somebody that you knew personally, or something that you heard about? Because I've heard some pretty amazing stories and stuff involving ribs.
I've heard that the Road Warriors were pretty big on ribs. Of course, they weren't like you were gonna do nothing to them. As far as like I really knew, everybody that we toured with, we just, anybody you rode with, you just had to watch. Like, you never fell asleep around these guys, ever. Like,
no, so you mean to tell me everybody's just up, like, looking like zombies because they're afraid to go to sleep?
Man, they ready. Like, everybody's sitting there on 10, ready to do something stupid. So, it's like, that's just how it is. That's just how the brotherhood is. And sad to say, it was more of a brotherhood back then. But, yeah, man, like, you just have to have that type of personality. Like with the stresses of the business, you know what I mean? Like, who wants to be serious all the time? So, that's crazy.
Now, you're talking about the brotherhood of the business and stuff, and we talked earlier about how the business has changed. And we've both seen, the evolution of professional wrestling to where it's more athletic-based and stuff, and guys are doing a lot more death-defying, daring moves and stuff. But at the same time, guys are making a lot more money on the independents now than they ever have. There are guys, of course, everybody knows about the Young Bucks and Colt Cabana and guys like that and stuff. 20 years ago, did you ever think that you would see guys on the independents turning down WWE contracts like they are now?
Man, no. No. Back then, like, you actually had, you had more of an option back then. So it was like that was your main purpose, was to get signed somewhere. And, now your options are a little bit lesser, but you still have options. But as far as back then, man, it didn't matter what you got signed for. There were stories of guys turning down, contracts or whatever, but not like, now or whatever. You got in where you fit in. Like, and it was just a love for the business that, you busted your butt to the point where, if you got signed, you just appreciated it more. North Carolina is like a hotbed, especially coming up. There was like so many guys from North Carolina being signed, and what most people don't realize, all of them came from one clique, one area here, So.
And what area? I'm gonna go ahead and put you on blast. What area was that most of them came from?
Man, everybody came from the Southern Pines, Cameron area. Like if you hung out with, the Hardy Boys, or you hung out with, and it was more than just hanging out. Those guys, like, I can never say this enough. Those guys looked out for each other like ridiculous. I don't know too many guys that were from that area and that came up through Omega that haven't been signed at some point. Like, I don't see an organization that has ever fed the WCW, WWE, whatever, who has ever fed more than Omega.
I can only think of one guy, what was it, Champagne? was like the only guy.
Champagne was actually, and it's crazy because you can actually look up some of the clips. Like the craziest thing, he took a crazy pedigree from Triple H, but Champagne actually worked in the WWE. You know, I can't remember if he had a contract, but
I don't think he had a contract.
Actually, no, he was. I think he was used, as a extra talent, but still, your opportunities to shine. I still can't see another local Fed that fed those guys more than Omega did.
Well, speaking of North Carolina and the entire Mid-Atlantic area and stuff, we're going to go ahead and talk about, right now you're the current reigning and defending NWA Mid-Atlantic Junior Heavyweight Champion and stuff. What do you want your title reign to be about? What is your goal, your end game and stuff, besides being the champion for as long as possible and stuff? What are you out here to prove? It's 20 years, then done so much, traveled up and down the road so much, been in the ring with so many great wrestlers and stuff. What is your goal right now? What are you trying to prove, I guess?
My goal right now is to help as many as the up and comers that I can. Is also to still put on great matches, and to always leave the fans wanting more. It's not really about being a 5-star match or whatever, but it's more or less about what did I bring to that show? How much better did I make this show? How much better did I make the guys around me? Whether it's ideas I may have or the actual in-ring, my goal is always to just put on the best show I can. It's never been about money for me. It's never, on some real, coming up, I looked up to so many people, but it was always about could I do it more or less than could I make it. I didn't want to be the next Hulk Hogan. I didn't want to be the next Stone Cold or whatever. I just wanted to do what I loved from the time I was crawling, and that was getting in the ring and performing.
Now, you said you want to put on good matches and everything. Like I said, I seen a match with Chris Cornett and stuff. We saw highlights. NWA Mid-Atlantic have released the highlights and stuff. And fortunately, I was there to see the match. But what do you think that you bring to the table, that you bring to the show, that a lot of these younger guys could either learn from or don't bring to the show? What do you think that you have that these other kids are missing?
I would say personality. I would say that I actually do things in the ring that you're gonna remember after the show. You're actually gonna remember seeing me from the time I come through the curtain to the time I leave the curtain, and you're gonna remember that. A lot of guys, you can do your flips, you can do whatever it is you do, and I'm not gonna hate on you for doing it, but at the end of the night, are they going to remember your match, or are they going to remember your move, or are they even going to remember you? At the end of the night, I'm going to give you something to go home and be ready to come to the next show with.
Now, how do you feel, like I saw the promo and stuff, the interview after your match where you were talking about, strong style wrestling. How do you personally feel about, guys who come up and stuff and say, oh, what's your style? Some guys say I'm a high flyer, technical, I'm a fighter, a bruiser, whatever you want to call it, a power guy. When guys say, oh, I do strong style wrestling, what is the first thought that comes to your mind when somebody says that to you?
Really, when I hear somebody say strong style, which, people can only go back so far with even hearing the phrase strong style, probably within the last 2 years or whatever. So, but when I hear somebody say, oh, I work strong style or whatever, I just feel like you can't work. if that makes any kind of sense.
Like, hey.
You know, I just feel like if you gotta go out here and just simply work super stiff, you know, there's a difference between making it look like that and actually sending a man home, you know, messed up, you know.
Oh, definitely. You know, I tell guys I work tight. You know, if you want to work stiff and get into a fist fight, go to MMA. You know,
yeah.
I like my teeth where they're at.
Exactly. Working snug is one thing. Like you always wanna be on point. Like if I see you miss by a mile, you know, that's also gonna be something I remember about the night, but it's not gonna be a positive, you know. So if you want to add realness to it, then learn how to work, you know, first. You know, it ain't about going out there and doing 20 super kicks. You know, it's not about going out there and seeing just how hard you can hit somebody with your elbow. It's about actually incorporating all that and still telling a story, still affecting emotions, and giving the people a good match, something to see, you know.
Now, I'm gonna ask you: do you ever watch? Are you a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling?
I've watched a little bit of it.
Are you familiar? I'm asking that because, like, in the last couple of days or whatever, there's been a release. They just released a press announcement saying that you know, Shibata, one of their biggest stars as of right now, especially now that Nakamura left and Tanahashi is on his way out the door. Shibata suffered acute subdermal hematoma. Basically, he had bleeding on his brain from where he fractured his skull from a headbutt that he had given to Okada in their last match and stuff at Genesis. What do you think about situations, you know, when guys, situations like that stuff, when guys are throwing out shoot headbutts and stuff? What is your opinion on things like that?
I just ask what's the point? You know, I can go out here and give a headbutt and be just as effective with it. And this guy, I'm safe, he's still safe, then I can to go out there and try to push his nose to the back of his head. You know, like, I don't see the point. Like, that's his style, and he's amazing to watch. He's that's who I really say does strong style. But I still say, like, you can't be reckless, you know? Like, you know, look at all the guys that have come from over the pond, you know, and they're still safe, you know? They're still safe. So, yeah, and I've talked to guys who've been to Japan, and Japan is no joke. Like, that's any guy that's been there is always, you know, they'll always come back and tell you, you know, some of these guys are just not ready to go to Japan. You know, you have to be on P's and Q's because everything is stiff, but it's still an art to it, you know. So.
Now, getting away from wrestling, we'll talk about art because you're somewhat of a Renaissance man. Poetry and things like that. What are some of course, you know, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm getting towards. You have outside interests outside of beating up people inside the ring and stuff. A really good photography business. Do you want to tell us about it and how you got into getting into photography?
Oh man, photography is like my life as far as anything other than wrestling. I've been taking pictures forever. Not at the level that I do now, but it's always been one of my passions as far as a release. You know, when I can't go in there and beat somebody's ass, it's been that thing that like calms me down and puts me, you know, on another level. So, I mean, it's just an art form to me.
Well, go ahead and tell our listeners and stuff and our fans about your photography business and stuff. Obviously, I follow the page on social media, so feel free to talk about it. Give our listeners, information on where they can find it and stuff.
It's Guilty Pleasures Photography. You can look that up on Facebook. It's just a love for making moments, making lasting impressions. Images, photography, and pictures are eternal. They don't. It depends. There are old pictures, but it's something that'll always be around. When you're old and when your looks and all that starts to fade, your pictures will always be around. Like, there'll come a time when you won't be able to remember the bumps you took in the business, but you'll have pictures that'll always be around. And I have a thing about capturing those moments. I love to do that for people.
Now, speaking of moments and stuff, how much longer do you think you have left as far as being an in-ring performer? And are you still, like, after you decide to hang the boots up, do you still think that you'll be involved in the business either as a trainer or a booker or a promoter or a manager, whatever the case may be?
It's pretty much like I said. When I feel like somebody can take these 20 years away from me, then I'll be glad to hang these boots up. But you got to fight on your hands to do that. I don't think it can be just anybody. I'm surely not unbeatable. You know what I'm saying? When it happens, I'll know it. And I'll know when it's time to walk away. As far as afterwards, there's been times when I was like, if I walk away, I don't, I won't have anything else to do with it. But I would think that would be irresponsible on my part, So, on that point, I would say I would love to still be behind the scenes, making things happen, trying to make young guys better or whatever, and just improving the product.
I love that idea, man. I see this. You have so much knowledge and wisdom and so much experience and stuff. I think that's something that this business is definitely missing out on is the presence of, legitimate vets who've been doing this for 15, 20 years, being in the locker room. And you're somebody who's a lot of people don't realize this, and they might just see you and think that you're very, they may be intimidated, or they just might think, you're not very sociable, but you're very approachable in the locker room. And that's something that I feel like wrestling is definitely missing is, guys with your experience and your wisdom and stuff being approachable in the locker room.
Oh yeah, like you said earlier, we just came from a era where you came into the locker room, you introduced yourself, you shook hands, you greeted, and you gave acknowledgement to the ones around you, and the guys that are going to be on the show. And you sat down and you you shut up. But and that stuck with me to this day. I'm not one of those guys that get in the middle of a clique or, every locker room has them. But, I come in, greet everybody and, I find a seat and I sit down. But I'm never going to be a person that you can't walk up to, ever. Not even, at any point, like even outside of wrestling. Like I'm always a person that is down to help the next person. Whether it be advice or whatever. I still ask guys, hey, how that match look? Or, hey, what do you think about this? I don't know it all. You'll never know it all in this business. There's always going to be a time when you have something to learn. So, anybody that's in the locker room can always come up to me.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, and I know that time is running short, man. So before I bid you adieu and stuff, go ahead and give all of our listeners and fans your social media where they can find and they can keep up with you, not only as far as wrestling, but also, your amazing photography business, Guilty Pleasures. Go ahead and give out all your social media accounts and some information.
Facebook, you can find me under my shoot name, Dennis Saunders. You can also find me on Instagram under I Am Guilty Too. You can find my business, Guilty Pleasures Photography, on Facebook. And on Twitter, you can find me as, what is my Twitter? I don't have to get back at you on my Twitter. It's so new, I forgot it already. That's crazy.
Oh, come on, man. Look, you gotta have this stuff available. I think that you don't do too much of the Twitter. You don't tweet too much, man.
No, man, I'm not Donald Trump. I'm not like Twitter fingers. So, if you really wanna keep up with me, I'm really on my Facebook a lot more and my Instagram more than I am Twitter. I'm very new to Twitter. I think it's Carolina Strong 1. So, yeah, I think that's what it is.
Well, look, man, Nemesis, thank you for being a guest in the show, man. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully, we can have you back on the show and stuff in a couple of weeks, just to talk shop and stuff, man. So I know there's so much more that we can talk about, matches and your career and stuff. But yeah, I definitely want to thank you for being a guest on the show tonight.
Man, I appreciate it. Like, there's not too many things that can get me shaky or butterflies or whatever, but I still get butterflies in the business, and this interview has like wrecked my nerves.
Well, I couldn't tell, man. I definitely couldn't tell, man. But yeah, thanks for being on the show.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there it goes. Once again, that was the current reigning defending NWA Mid-Atlantic Junior Heavyweight Champion, Nemesis, somebody that I look up to in the business, somebody that I can say I can call for advice or information, whether I hit him up on the phone or whether I message him on Facebook. Definitely check him out. Check out his photography business, Guilty Pleasures, not only on Instagram, but also on Facebook. Find him on Facebook under his shoot name, Dennis Saunders. And we're gonna try to get his Twitter information. If I can get Twitter information, I'll go ahead and tweet it out on my social media and stuff so everybody can follow him. Anyway, this week coming up, I don't have anything. I have a lot of stuff planned and nothing planned at the same time. But Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I will be in Florida checking out some shows. Checking out shows, making connections. I will be, all over the place in Florida. Ronin Pro, definitely going to check out Brawl USA, Pro Wrestling, all the good shows that's going on this weekend. In Florida, you'll see me down there making connections, slapping hands, kissing babies, et cetera, et cetera. Monday, super excited about Monday. Monday, I will be in Atlanta, Georgia at the Museum Bar in Atlanta, Georgia for Atlanta Wrestling Entertainment. I will be a part of the Bad and Bougie Battle Royal. God knows, there are guys from like all over the country that's going to be in this Battle Royal. But as far as the show goes, man, you have Kurt Stallion versus Joseph Agal, Chip Day, Martin Stone, and David Starr, all wrestling for the Georgia Wrestling Crown Championship. The highlight of the night definitely is a match that's been 15, 20 years in the making. These guys, they have so much history. The notorious 187, former TNA star, former ROH star. You see them all over the world. The notorious 187 Homicide will be facing up against probably the most dangerous man in Georgia. Murder One. I mean, Jesus Christ, these guys are probably, this is an unsanctioned grudge match. I understand that I don't too much like Joseph Agal right now. Me and him have like some legit heat, whatever. But it's not to a level that Homicide and Murder One have. Like, these two dudes are probably going to end up killing each other, and I'm going to enjoy every single bit of it. Anyway, as usual, this podcast is brought to you by the Angry Marks Podcast. Once again, follow them on Facebook, follow them on Twitter, go to either, the Apple Store or go to the Google Play Store. Look up Angry Marks Podcast. There's every podcast there in the Angry Marks Podcast family. Click like, click download. You'll automatically start getting downloads and stuff. So that way, if you're on your way to work, if you're at work, if you're a wrestler like me, you're traveling, 2,000-3,000 miles every weekend from state to state, you'll have something to listen to, man. Not only this show, but like I said, there's shows such as Love Up or Shut Up, the Angry Marks Podcast. I mean, just the Raw Review, Impact Implosion, et cetera, et cetera. We cover everything from wrestling to MMA, not just the indies, but WWE, TNA, Lucha Underground, Impact Wrestling, ROH. If it's in wrestling, if it's in MMA, the Angry Marks Podcast definitely covers it. Anyway, follow me on all my social media. Once again, you can find me on Facebook at William Huckaby. I don't have a fan page, so if you find me on Facebook as William Huckaby, that's me. That's my real life. I feel like, as a professional wrestler, I'm more than just a wrestler. I'm a human being just like the rest of you, so follow me on Facebook and stuff. Send me a friend request. On Twitter, you can find me at W.A. Huckaby. Instagram, it's at William Huckaby. And like I said, I promise you guys we'll start uploading more content to my Instagram and stuff. I'm not Instagramming like I should be. I don't have Snapchat. I'm way too old to be Snapchatting. I don't understand it. And plus it just gets me in trouble with the old ball and chain, aka my wife. So I just don't Snapchat. And then you can find me on YouTube. I got my YouTube channel just set up and stuff, William Huckaby. Look it up. I'm gonna start putting some matches up there. I'm gonna start uploading a lot of content on my YouTube channel, not only just wrestling matches, not only promos and stuff, but just, daily videos. I might actually start recording myself doing this podcast. That way you people can have a video of me doing this podcast and stuff. You never know. I don't know how it's going to sound with just my side of the story, but it might just be a clip. I don't know. It might, I have no idea what I'm going to do. But anyway, on behalf of the hardest working producer in wrestling podcast history, Killer Calf, on behalf of my esteemed colleague, the bearded wonder, Das Vanderbeard, Zane Paisley, I am your World Wrestling Grand Prix champion, the West Virginia heavyweight champion, the IWA North Carolina heavyweight champion, the incredible Huck, the disrespectful intellectual, and the Southern gentleman, Will Huckaby, saying peace out, see you next Tuesday, and support indie wrestling. Have a good one. Bye. Kev, are you back yet? Probably not.